Hey everybody, this is Jeff Forman from Item Media, host of today's Engineering the Conversation online event. Whether you're attending live or you're watching the post-show recordings, you could check out some more of the presentations at engineeringtheconversation.com. So I'll keep the introduction short. Moving on, I'm going to jump right into the topic of today's discussion, which is qualifying leads through subject matter expertise. And when I'm referring to subject matter expertise, I'm really looking at the subject matter experts or the SMEs within your company. Typically, they're the scientists or the engineers that you may have employed. So first thing I want to do is give real brief background on who Item Media is. You may be familiar with us if you've worked with us with our publications, interference technology, or electronics cooling, for instance, where we've been putting out a lot of information regarding very specific electrical engineering fields. From there, we also host some online events dedicated to these industries, EMC Live and Thermal Live. And we really moved over the past year or so very heavily into providing a broader range of marketing support to highly technical companies. And you can see with today's presentation, for instance, how we've spun off Engineering the Conversation. So when you're looking at incorporating subject matter experts into your brand and into your marketing material, first thing you really want to do is take a look to see what your challenges are, because a lot of times there are challenges when you're trying to get the most out of your subject matter experts. The big one is time. I don't think I've ever spoke to someone who was from a tech company who was trying to get their engineers or their research team, whatever it may be, to produce content and had someone tell me they've got so much time to produce content. There's always an issue of time. From there, you run into the issue of hesitation. Some subject matter experts may not really be interested or maybe not very comfortable in writing content. Maybe writing isn't their background. They're not really sure how else they can contribute. You also have a lack of understanding. Subject matter experts, especially the engineering field, a lot of times people want direction. They want to know what they're doing and why they're doing it. So they may not understand why you're coming to ask, hey, can you write this white paper or whatever it may be. And from there, it's tough to educate your subject matter experts if you yourself and your marketing team or your sales team don't have an actual content strategy and goal. You should know why you're trying to produce content. A lot of companies produce content with the hope that just by producing it, someone's going to find it, and that does happen, but you really should be trying to align your content with your strategic business decisions. So moving forward with today's presentation, specifically, I'm going to be looking at how you can brand your subject matter experts as USPs, so in a sense, thinking them kind of similar to like a product your company may be selling. How you get your SMEs to be involved with your marketing and sales. How you save their time. This is I think, really goes into the main focus of the presentation, at least my own personal favorite part. How you can incorporate subject matter experts beyond just purely producing content. And finally, how do you align them with the buyer's funnel? The fact that certain content is best served at certain times. Before we go into that, though, I want to go over some interesting numbers. 47% of B2B buyers view 3 to 5 pieces of content before engaging with a sales rep. Over the past few years, there's really been this focus on content because of advancements in search engines, the big old Google, mobile devices. People really look to learn first before taking a next step. From there, 75% of B2B buyers give more credence to industry influencer content. They're looking for people that have this brand, and they're looking for people that have this recognition. And from there, big one, 87% of B2B buyers are placing a higher emphasis on the trustworthiness of the source than the previous year. And this is you really want to get into differentiating technical content from just purely marketing or brand content. So how do you move someone from a SME to a USP? First, you want to know why it's happening. And the reason why is because, see if you can make out what these symbols are meant to be. You have the book, which is really meant to be education. By education, you're providing knowledge. And by knowledge, you're providing trust. And if someone learns from you, they trust you. And if they trust you, they're more likely to make a purchase from you. You see those good old dollars right there. And if they make that purchase, assuming it was a smooth experience, assuming that you're continuing that relationship after purchase, they will continue to be a repeat customer, continue to learn from you, continue to buy from you. And in doing so, when you're transitioning these subject matter experts to these unique selling points, you have a couple ways of doing it. One is empowerment, and these really should be both used together if possible. By empowering, it's providing the subject matter expert with the ability to contribute and letting them know that they have the power to contribute. It's not being forced of them necessarily, it's increasing that engagement. Next is branding, turning the subject matter expert into someone that is standing out, is recognizable within the industry. So how do you get them involved? How do you get someone interested in producing content or contributing? First thing you want is to put some purpose behind the content. Why is the content being generated? And the more you know the answers to these, the more you can provide these answers to the subject matter expert as an initial discussion, not something you're following up with later on. Give some individual benefit to the subject matter expert. What's in it for them? A lot of times they may have to take time out of their own schedule to do this. And that may involve working overtime, whatever it may be. So they should know what's in it for them beyond just the marketing is looking better. Part of that could be incentive. You know, in addition to the big benefit of being just pure brand awareness and educating, what is the importance of being recognized in your industry? There's, advantages in growing their career and so on. You could also provide some incentive. I've seen companies maybe provide some type of gift card for producing content or assigning a goal to the content that if it acquires, X amount of readership or whatever it may be, that there's something passed on to the content creator. Provide the subject matter experts with assistance in producing this type of content. Like I said, not everyone is comfortable writing. Not everyone is comfortable presenting. So give them some options. For instance, maybe you're just asking them to do a Q&A where you have someone sit down with the subject matter expert, ask some questions, record the answers, and then you have someone else really put that into a piece of material. And then provide options. Like I just said, with the Q&A as being one example, other options could be, hey, you have the option of writing a white paper. You could present a webinar. You could just record an audio track. Maybe it's an audio interview. Give these experts some different choices that may align best with what their comfort and interest is. So from there, if you extend the offer to the subject matter expert on what type of content they're looking to produce, or maybe you just ask them, please produce a white paper, for instance, it's really important, and as I mentioned, this is actually my favorite part of the presentation, it's really important to realize that content doesn't stop once it's made. There's a lot more you can do with it. So we're going to follow sort of the lifespan of a white paper here. So let's say you have a white paper. One of your SMEs generated a piece of written material. That white paper most likely, or should at least, have some really, really informative information. So what else can you do with that information? You can take some of it and turn it into an infographic. You can repurpose the white paper. Maybe it's the engineer or the researcher, whoever it may be, the SME, presents that as a webinar, or you have someone else do. And you could use pieces of that material as blog posts. Maybe it's one blog post. Maybe you repurpose a white paper and you get 3 ideas for blog posts where the majority of it's already written. You just need someone to restructure it a bit. So let's say you take that white paper and turn it into a webinar. What do you get from a webinar? You get the event itself. So let's say you're presenting it live. You get that live event, registrations, and so on. But from there, once it's done, you're left with 3 actually unique components from that webinar. For instance, you get the webinar transcript, the actual written wordage used during the presentation, in addition to actually the presentation materials itself, such as your PowerPoint or whatever you may be using. You may have the webinar recording. so the actual file of what was developed from this webinar. And depending on the type of material, depending on whether it was very visual or not, you may have an audio recording, something akin to like a podcast, for instance. You have an audio file you can extract from this. So from there, you can take your transcript and your recorded webinar and you can put it on YouTube. By putting the transcript on there, not allowing just YouTube to make its own transcript, it actually provides great searchability, so video SEO benefits, someone going on YouTube, someone going on Google and searching it because it provides the platform with the actual words used from the webinar to be searched. You can take the audio, as I mentioned, and use it to something like a podcast. You could take all that material and you could put it onto your website, and there's different benefits of having different types of material on your website. Some people may be more likely to watch a video. Some people may be more likely to just listen. Some people may just want to read, for instance. But in this case, you can put all this material on your website. And now what you actually have is you've got 7 pieces of content produced right there. And it's a big chunk. Most people, if they were sitting down saying, hey, I want to develop a content plan with 7 pieces of content, that takes time. They may be trying to think of it in the sense of, I need a unique idea, a unique concept, and so on. But this is actually just starting from 1 and turning 1 into 7. And in addition to the benefit of being able to send this out to different channels, there's actually a lot of website SEO benefit here, especially, as I mentioned, using the transcript. A quick tip, if you have video content and you put that video content on your website, consider actually sitting down or using a service or having someone type up the actual transcript from that video and embedding the text of that transcript on the same page as the video on your website. So not through YouTube, actually on your website itself. Spoken language is really the new age of search engine optimization. And if you can take and harvest transcripts from videos, you're providing a ton of incredible SEO benefit. If you're not familiar with SEO, it's the idea that by structuring or structuring your website a certain way or putting content on your website, that'll make it easier for it to be found in Google, for instance, or other search engines. Transcripts are awesome for that. Very, very highly recommended. So then you take those 7 pieces of content, and you look at the different distribution channels you have. You have email, social media. You could print them. You can put them on your website, mobile app, or the mobile version of your website. So even though it's 7, now you have different means of it being distributed to your prospects or to your clients or customers and so on. So the reach of that content is absolutely massive, especially depending on if you have a large email list or you're looking for a big social presence, whether it's paid or organic. So beyond just simply producing content, what other benefit can a subject matter expert provide marketing or sales team? And beyond taking their knowledge, for instance, part of your marketing plan could include something like scheduled consultations. Someone submits a form. They have the ability to schedule a consultation with your subject matter expert, keeping in mind that this does take time. It allows your subject matter expert to actually build a bit of a relationship with the prospect, to speak to them, to share their knowledge. I've seen a lot of companies, actually one of the other presenters at Engineering the Conversation, a company called Active Campaign, they host office hours. So they use this, as far as I know, just for their clients, but you could definitely turn this into something you use for prospects too. Similar to a scheduled consultation, but rather than scheduling it, you have a set time. So at 3 p.m. for an hour, your subject matter experts can be reached by phone, by email, by a chat platform like a live chat or something like that. Some way to be able to engage directly with them. Another way would be turning it into a hosted Q&A session where maybe it's a call, maybe it's through a webinar, the ability for people to just purely ask questions in either a one-on-one or a public environment. And finally, looking at bringing these subject matter experts to trade shows. uh, to really expand not just your own event presence, but their event presence. Keep in mind, one of the things you're looking to do here is you're looking to brand them. So you're looking to turn them into a recognizable figure if they're not already. And if they are, even better, because now you have someone recognizable within your booth or walking the floor that people will come up to. Because like I said, it's almost a little bit of that celebrity effect. If people are seeing someone being used in marketing material, they start to develop this sort of mental connection with the image of this person. They identify them, they recognize them. If they see them at a trade show, it's a little step, possible connection. They may be more likely to approach them. If they're in a booth, if they're handing out material, they may be more likely to go up and take that material because there is a bit of that connection. Now, how do you align all of this to the buyer's funnel? So what I'm going to go through is borrowed to an extent from HubSpot, another presenter here, and this is the idea that you can take the buyer's experience, the experience that ranges from first trying to find out initial information all the way down to making a purchase decision. And what it's split here, and I'll go through them, is 3 phases. So you have awareness, consideration, and decision. So in your awareness phase, this is where people are trying to find an answer to what may be a very top of the level question. This is where you want them, so essentially take whatever product you sell and ask yourself, how does someone find this product? What challenge are they faced with that needs to lead them to your product? And that challenge is the awareness stage. They're not ready to look for a product because they're trying to find answers. Great examples of content to satisfy this stage would be white papers, tip sheets, maybe it's a downloadable tip sheet, introductory webinar, something that's really addressing the concept and the challenge, not addressing product. Really important to look at this awareness stage is not meant to be product focused. Oftentimes content here doesn't even mention product. It's just the idea that the topic is being presented by the company, and the fact that it's branded as the company is building that connection with the reader, not that it's mentioning product. Maybe it's something like a guide also. Again, this is meant to be found in search engine searches, social media, so on. Think of it more as stumbling upon it. Or maybe you're using this material at a trade show and handing it out, that initial first contact. From there, we move into consideration. And the consideration stage is the bridge between awareness and decision. And the idea is this is where you're looking to start building the connection between the content you're providing and the product you're providing. So, for instance, take whatever your topic was from the awareness stage. Drill down into that topic another level. This is where it's starting to get a little bit more specific to actually addressing or providing solutions to it. And during the delivery of this content, you start to introduce how your product can assist. An application note, for instance. Maybe you're discussing whatever the challenge is in a specific application, a automotive application, for instance, and you're wrapping up the application note with how your product is able to assist. A more advanced webinar. You can do more product-focused pieces here. Again, though, there has to be that connection between the topic and the product. So the advanced webinar would be, again, looking at that next stage, that next step in this topic. Or you could really go pure product in this case and focus very, very heavily on what it is you're providing as a solution. But again, you want to make that connection between not just, hey, this is my product, this is why you should buy, but rather, this is my product, this is how it's going to resolve your challenge, and this is why you should buy. If you have case studies, they are a great option to be used in this stage. A lot of companies have trouble with case studies because, especially in some of these more technical industries, you may not be able to reveal who the client is. And at the end of the day, that does take a little bit out of the case study, especially if you're working in military defense applications. You may have NDAs where you just can't reveal anything. But you could also do anonymous case studies. Change the name, maybe change the scenario just a bit. The concept, though, will still be there, and someone will still be able to connect with it and understand. It just doesn't have quite the power as actually saying, Company X purchased this product, and this is what happened. And then you wrap it up to the decision phase. And the decision phase is the spot in the buyer's funnel where someone says, all right, I know what my challenge is. I know how to solve it. I also know that there's these 3 products, and they all look pretty good, and maybe I'm not 100% sure what the difference is between them. So how do I address it? Which product is for me, and what should I do? So in this case, going back to the idea of a consultation, provide something that your competitors don't. And a lot of times, at the end of the day, especially if you get into a lot of the component suppliers in tech industries, there may not be a huge difference between company X and company Y. Even price may be pretty similar. So it may come down to what you're trying to win on is relationship. And something like a consultation is a great way to win on relationship. You want to build that connection so you're engaging with them. Another thing, maybe something like a design review. If this works for whatever industry you may be in, you could have an engineer who's reaching out to your company because they've developed a print for something that they're looking to bring to production or to prototype, and they want a second set of eyes on it. Could be a situation where it helps you build a OEM relationship. You provide some input on a design. You also spec in, provide recommendations or a deal on a component you provide. They can spec in to whatever device or project they're working on. So, at the end of the day, you should be able to answer the question, are you overlooking or struggling with incorporating your subject matter experts into your marketing plan? And chances are, there's a high chance you may be, because I think most companies are, and most subject matter experts don't know how to assist. They may not want to assist, and a big reason for that is because they think there's too much time investment required, and that's not always the case. Chances are there's going to be some time investment required, but if you use something like taking a Q&A, it may be a 30-minute conversation, even a 15-minute conversation. You may real quickly address 5 different topics, and you can take the commentary from there, record the conversation. You could have someone write it up. You could use the recording itself. And suddenly that was a 30-minute investment on the SME's part, and they were able to produce something that's actually usable. Here's a little upsell for Item Media. For anyone's interested, there are times where someone just doesn't have a great way to engage their subject matter experts. It could be a situation of manpower. And it looks like we actually have a question regarding that specifically that I'll address in a second. But companies like Item Media or others out there, in the case that your subject matter experts don't have the time, maybe you have a small headcount, for instance, just don't have the manpower to do it, there's other ways of incorporating external assistance through them producing content. And in a day, the content should be in a proper relationship, content that you would own, and you can use it how you want, even if that means assigning it to a subject matter expert who may not necessarily have written it, but could have had some degree of oversight on it. So there we go. I will open it up to questions. I have a couple now that I could answer. Anyone else have anything? Feel free to send them over now. So, let's see. All right, so this is going back straight to what I had just addressed. What if there really is no way to free up my engineers' time? Like I said, in this case, good solution is to start small. A Q&A discussion. It could occur over lunch. There's ways of making time in most instances. Not every instance, but in most instances. You could take something small and turn it into something much larger. Another option, as mentioned, what Item Media provides, what other companies out there provide, is the ability to outsource the content production. You could always use it as a ghostwriter. And what I mean by a ghostwriter is that you're assigning authorship to something that the author may not necessarily have written, but it's part of what you had purchased in that relationship. Ghostwriting is very common in a lot of industries, technical and non-technical. But my own recommendation in that case is make sure your subject matter expert is aware of what you're doing, is contributing to the process. Maybe they're just doing a review of what was written, because it's possible that they may be asked questions. Someone may reach out to them regarding the piece of content. And then the second one we have here is, how do you measure the success of a content-focused plan like this? So that's a complicated question that has a lot of different ways of answering it, and it depends on what you mean by success and what you're looking to do. So for one, success is dependent on the stages of the buyer's funnel, and there isn't really a quick answer as to this is success. You want to have success defined at different stages, and this is something that you should know. So, for instance, when you're starting at the awareness stage, success may be defined more by engagement metrics. So, how many people read something, page visits, downloads if you have something gated. By gated, that means it requires a form to submit. All these type of actions could be considered success metrics. As you move on, you want to change those metrics, though, because at the end of the day, you're trying to sell a product or a service, and you want to make sure those metrics are measurable. In that case, it could be how many conversations were started with your subject matter expert, how many conversations were started with your sales team. You want to be able to have an idea of what you consider to be a marketing qualified lead, or an MQL, or a sales qualified lead, or an SQL. And the difference there is that the sales qualified lead is someone who is ready to make a purchase decision, or thinks they're ready to make a purchase decision. The marketing qualified lead needs more of that awareness, that consideration stage to move it on. Things we'll do, for instance, is we like to look at what we consider to be active conversations as a success metric, because for us, working with a company, we can't sell the product for you. We can just provide healthy leads. So we have our own idea of what we consider an active conversation. That may be something that a marketing department does. They will collect enough information, find out how soon someone wants to buy, for instance. You could ask this in forums, and in my own surprise doing this now for quite a while, people will provide quite a bit of information to download valuable content. And that could mean, are you ready to make a purchase? How soon are you making a purchase of whatever the product may be? Is it not at all, 0 to 3 months, 4 to 6 months, and so on, and go that route. You could always assign it to sales dollars. Are you doing more business based on this? But the warning there, and I know everyone wants to be able to associate everything to a sale, you just need to make sure you have the knowledge in-house and the technology in place to do it. That means your CRM system should be tracking the source of conversations and tracking it through the funnel. Do you know who engaged with what piece of content? Do you have a way of identifying that this person made a purchase and I know they engaged with X, Y, and Z of the different pieces of content that were produced? If not, again, I would look to see how you can implement these. I would look for external assistance if you think it's appropriate. There's other companies presenting at today's event, like HubSpot, like ActiveCampaign, that provide these type of solutions for you. But not the clearest answer in the world, because it's really specific to the piece of content, but the specific plan. But you'll be able to identify what success is as long as you've identified what your goal is. So if you know what you're trying to achieve, then that's your your metric for success, and that's where your KPIs or key performance indicators come from. That's all I have for today. If anyone else has any last-minute questions, looks like no. So as I said, there's other presentations ongoing today, or if you're watching this on demand, the other presentations can be accessed at engineeringtheconversation.com. So have a great day, everybody.